We are activating your unique self-discovery one show at a time. The Orchard of Wisdom Self-Discovery podcasts are at your fingertips, just waiting to inspire and invite you in discovering just how awesome you really are and how to navigate through life in joy, enrichment, personal abundance, in mind, body, spirit, heart, and soul. All the people we bring you are here to serve you on your journey of life. Do enjoy our next show. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of Quantum Spirituality right here at selfdiscoverymedia.com. I'm your host, Sarah Troy, and my guest today is Les Velez. Well, if you think that you don't belong to this planet, you're probably right. And if you've had an experience, what now? Les shares stories and discusses OPUS, the Organization for Paranormal Understanding and Support, as well as its mission to reach out and provide help and support to those who have encountered extraordinary paranormal experiences. What are those experiences? We're going to talk about some of them today. What can we do about it? What does it mean? All of this is going to be in the discussion. But there is a video that is actually on their site of You Are Not Alone, and it's the gathering of the tribe, which I highly recommend that you do look at. And seeing it, it totally and utterly summed up my existence here on this planet, which we will talk about as well. But let's get right into it. Les, welcome.
Well, thank you very much, Sarah. I really appreciate being on your show.
People think the paranormal is just kind of sci-fi and it's just TV and all of those things, but really it's the undercurrent, isn't it? It's the veins of everything that runs through everything. And if we could just open our minds, hearts, and souls to what we can't see or physically touch, we would actually understand we're never alone, we're always guided, the truth is always there, that knowingness is always there, and we're here for a reason.
Absolutely. I think that my journey started when I was 11 years old, and I saw an object in the sky, and it frightened me, and because it was rather close, and I ran into the house and tried to get my father to come out, and by the time he did, it was gone. And he says, "Well, it was probably just a beacon of light reflecting off a cloud." And I didn't buy that. And I went to the library soon thereafter and started to read books at that time by George Adamski, which were all related to UFOs.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And so after a while, I went to college and got married and then moved out to California in 1985. And I picked up the San Jose Mercury News, and a gentleman by the name of Stanton Freeman, who's a nuclear physicist, was going to speak about UFOs and the government cover-up. Well, it was like somebody threw a light switch, Yeah. I had to go see him, and he had this fantastic presentation. And at the end of it, I was walking out, and in the foyer, there was a table set up by MUFON, the Mutual UFO Network. And they had a monthly journal that they published. And so I decided to get that. And after a while, that wasn't enough. And I became a field investigator for MUFON. And that's when things really started to open up because most of the cases that I got involved with were not only sightings that these people were having, but also contact with non-human intelligences. And my window of believability, if you will, in the beginning was relatively narrow. And then as I talked with these people and worked with these people, it started to really expand significantly. And you come to find out that each of these experiences in general may be somewhat similar, but there's a different take that each of the people have based on their backgrounds and their upbringing and their family situation. It's all connected, and it really boils down to consciousness that the big C word that people are using a lot of these days. And so I found that hardly anything surprises me these days because, people talk about um, poltergeist activity. They talk about near-death experiences. They talk about contact with non-human intelligences, whether it's interdimensional orbs, extraterrestrial. This is all connected. It's all connected. And people say, well, you got to show me the evidence. Well, there's a lot of evidence actually.
But do they choose to believe it? That's the problem,
Yeah,
right?
that's the problem, exactly. And so I think we're starting to see the door open a bit with regard to the general populace. I mean, and you mentioned shows now, there's so many shows on regarding, paranormal phenomena. And, which includes so many different things, spiritual awakening, uh, as I mentioned, poltergeist activity. But it, then you bring in people that have had these experiences and they become healers or they are healed if they have something going on with them. There's so many levels to this thing. I always use the term going down the rabbit hole. Alice went down there and she had quite an experience as well. This is exactly what's happening with this. We truly don't fully understand this phenomena, and I'll just say this phenomena to basically cover all the bases because each one has its peculiarities and the interactions that these energies are having with people. And I think I think here I'll throw this out there because I've really come to believe this in a big way, that I believe every person on this planet has had an experience of some sort. And whether they consciously remember it or know it, that's a whole nother thing. And I'll tell you a little story about, I started to facilitate a support group soon after I became a field investigator because these people came to me and said, hey, look, do you know of other people having similar circumstances in their lives? And I said, well, I do. And they said, well, I like to meet that person. And I said, well, all right. And then so I started to facilitate this support group. And that's where I learned so much by listening to these people tell their stories. And one of the meetings I had, one of the people in the group said, I've seen you before. I said, where? At a conference of some sort, at the supermarket? And they said, no, I saw you on board the craft. I said, really? Okay. So I at that point, I didn't pay much attention to it. I just, ignored it. And then it was like a year and a half later that a totally different person said, I've seen you before. And I said, where? At a conference or supermarket? They said, no, I saw you on board the craft. You were sitting on this bench naked and you were freaking out. And they told me to go over to you to calm you down. So at that point, I finally said, all right, I have to go get regressed. And I had 3 separate regressions and I had multiple past lives.
Yes.
And reincarnation is a big factor in all of this, I believe, in a big way.
Magnitude. Yes.
Yeah, and so, but I had no again, conscious recollection, even under hypnosis, no recollection of being on board a craft or having contact of that nature. But I think you mentioned before we came on the air that you have had contact, and it's you remember it, and so in my case, it's just something that maybe I'm not supposed to remember it in some way, shape, or form, but it seems like I have a mission
Yeah.
And I've tried to back out of my mission a couple of
Can't.
times.
You can't.
You can't do it. Can't do it.
No,
It-
but we're here for a reason, and we're here for that enlightenment. We're actually, cosmic beings having a human experience.
Mhm,
And they say aliens among us. Yes, many of them. I'm one of them. I'm not from originally from Earth. I
mhm,
know this. I came here uh, to be a soul and heart igniter, to connect
mhm,
people to the universal energy. And, through the thousands of years that I've been here, I've gone through many, many experiences. I've also had many lifetimes cleared from me because they did not serve me anymore. They held me back. We do hold on to past life DNA, past life trauma. It stores up in our cellular memory, and it does need to be released because it can have an effect on you in your current life. But we have many lifetimes. We come, we learn a lesson, or we don't learn the lesson. Very few people in one first lifetime learn all that they need to know so they can ascend to a higher plane. We come back time and time again until we've kind of got that lesson, or what we came here to do has been accomplished. And so sometimes you remember the past lives. The thing called deja vu,
mhm.
is the I've done this before, I've met you before, I've been here before. This is, yes, most likely in a past lifetime you have been. We're not always meant to remember. And if we do remember, we're remembering at a time that we need to know.
Yeah, I've been told that I'm a old soul, and I also when they told me that I'm an old soul, that I guess I must be kind of dumb because I keep coming back to try to learn something new and or
But that's
figure
that's
out
that's what
something.
this lifetime is all about, is that you are stepping out of the human restraints and opening up, your heart and soul to that universal knowledge of why are you seeing this? Why are you being that support group for other people? Why are you opening up all these experiences for people to try and understand? That is your path this year, this lifetime. It is to bring together those experiences so we don't look at them as abnormal. And instead, we try and look at them as, what do they mean? What do they mean to the collective? What are we meant to do with this information? Right? So if
Mhm,
we can get over the shock of, I saw a spacecraft, which I did when I was young too. I'm a dimensional traveler, so I'm always in different planes anyway. Um, there's so many experiences that we have that we dismiss. If we
mhm,
didn't dismiss them and we just accepted them, even if we didn't understand them, we just accepted them, let them sit there, they will manifest for us in an understanding of what we want to do with it. The trouble is, as human beings, we want to dismiss. Where's the proof? I want to see the validation. And even when they see it, they don't believe it, because that's
mhm.
the human restriction of the
Right.
human mind. When we can open up that mind to see that this isn't so strange, it's strange to us because I haven't experienced before. But if I'm willing to open up to the experience, it won't feel so strange. Then I'll understand what I need to do with it.
Absolutely. It's so happens so often that we have Opus has an online support group, which is totally confidential, and these people can speak with one another 24/7.
Mm-hmm.
And we have them from literally all over the world, South America, Africa, New Zealand, all over. And they're asking questions, so many questions about, their particular experience. And then the people have been able to give them, their answer, what they feel
Mm-hmm.
is going on, because it's a very personal thing. Um,
Yes.
it's you can't just make it, put it all in a nice little box,
No.
because you can't do that.
It's your personal journey, it's your personal experience, but what is the experience for?
Yeah, and they often ask, why me? Why
Right.
is this happening to me?
Mm.
And uh, it, it's not a simple answer. It could be multiple reasons why it's them. Uh, some of these things are very generational.
Mm-hmm.
Was your mother
Yes.
a psychic, or had that ability to see as you do, or your grandmother? I mean, and that's one of the things we talk about with the group is the fact that a lot of these people are being generationally
Yeah.
followed and having those kinds of contacts. I mean, the our Native American Indians here are, you know, uh, tell stories all the time about their experiences with entities, and a lot of the shamans, and that's passed down. And a lot of it has to do with women. I mean, it seems like there's a real strong uh, um, connection there with having those kind of abilities and being a woman. I'm not sure why that's the case. I mean, yes, of course, there's men that have it, but it seems like the vast majority turn out to be women.
I think
Uh,
because we're quite instinctual and intuitive creatures by nature.
mhm,
And I think we're just kind of probably more open to it. My mum was Fae, my grandmother was Fae, goes back, my brother is
mhm,
an author. When he writes very intuitively, very spiritually, but he doesn't live
mhm,
that way. Right. So
mhm,
it pours out in his writing. So everything comes out in the way that it's meant to come out. And,
mhm,
with each generation, it's used in a different way. We have to look at it as an instrument. It is the instrument that we've been given. How do I play it? And who do I play
mhm,
it for? Where's my orchestra? Who can I join that we're collectively with our own beautiful music that we can send out that resonance that's going to uplift and enlighten people. So we look for our tribe. We look for the people where we're in sync. We're on the same vibration. And the thing is just don't be afraid. We've seen the movies where the alien entities are out to get us. And yes, there are aliens out there that are bad ones. There are, right? But most of them are here to help us to stop being self-destructive and destroying this planet, which we're
mhm.
hell-bent on doing as human beings. We've lost
Yeah,
our way and we need guidance badly.
yeah. We're doing a good job in destroying this wonderful planet that we live
Yes.
on.
Yeah.
And that's a very common thing that people come away with. They have their worldview is changed, that
Hmm.
we need to be better stewards of the planet.
Yes.
We need to be better, to one another. We need to love more than, have fear in our hearts.
Right.
And I agree with you that, there are couple of schools. One school says all the aliens are bad. The other one says they're all good. Well, I think it's a combination. Just like we have
Yeah.
here on this earth,
Hmm.
we have good people and we got bad people, and I guess there's lessons to be had in interacting with both sides.
Yeah.
Um, and
We are seeing a difference, though, a wonderful shift. And for all the bad news and all the terrible things that are happening in the world right now, there's a wonderful Celtic rune called Haglas, which means disruption. And you can't
mhm,
have clarity without disruption. You cannot have a clean slate without cleaning house. And in a lot of ways, all of this resistance that's happening in the wars, in trying to turn the clock back 50 years, women in their place, people of color in their place, white
mhm,
Christianity coming up to the forefront and ruling everything. You've had your day, you destroyed, um, you discriminated, and this is about unison. This journey right now, it doesn't matter. Black, white, pink, polka dot, who cares? It is about the color of your heart, your soul, and your
mhm,
meaningful
mhm.
purpose. And the coming
Right.
together to raise the vibration, the frequency of healing on this planet. But whenever you've got that movement and subliminally they know that movement is happening, and their resistance to join us is to become disruptive. But what they're doing is they're disrupting their own growth, their own ascension into a higher plane. And we can reach this higher plane while being in these bodies. We don't have to die to reach that higher plane. It's up to us if we're going to open up our minds, hearts, souls to receive the knowingness and follow that path. And it really, it's so goddamn simple. It really is based in love. Love of
Yes.
self, love of planet, love of each other,
Yeah.
love of and gratitude of everything that we have been given, that abundance, not opulence,
Right.
abundance, and our attitude towards each other and life. And those that don't want that or resistant to that are the ones that are complaining the most and stirring things up the most.
Yes. I've learned so much in the since 1994 when Opus became a nonprofit
Which, by
organization.
the way, was a portal opening in 1994. It was a huge awakening for many, many, many people, many of the leaders that are leading now.
Wow. Huh. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's interesting. That's interesting. Well, so I just it never fails to amaze me how this process of unfolding, the next path or
Mm,
the direction that you're supposed to go happens. Uh, Recently, we've been doing some work on our website, which is opusnetwork.org, and we needed a couple of new people, to do certain things, and we thought about it, and then all of a sudden, somebody shows up on our doorstep, so to speak,
mhm.
who's got the exact background that we need to do what we want
They
to.
got them. They got the message, right?
They got the message, and that to me is just absolutely is amazing. And of course, people that have psychic ability uh, just absolutely are phenomenal to me. That you can see not only the past, the present, but also the future,
Mhm.
and so many stories are out there. I have a friend who's a psychic up in Canada, and she was telling me a story about a woman that had come to her on a subject that she wanted some help on. And during that session, on, on a totally different path, the psychic person said, um, "You need to really watch your son. He's could commit suicide," which the woman, obviously reacted and said, "Well, he has been acting strangely, and so thank you." Well, again, a long story short, next time the lady came back to work with the psychic, uh, her son had eventually committed suicide, had
Mm,
committed suicide. And uh, you know, or another story about a doctor, a woman doctor who went on a kayaking adventure down in South America, and she went over a falls and got trapped at the bottom of the falls, and for over 30 minutes. Now, most people would be dead
yeah.
with no oxygen, and during that time, she saw these incredible loving entities,
Hmm.
and she wanted to go with them. And they said, "No,
Yes.
no, no, you have things to do. You have to go back."
Oh, I know.
And, and
Do I have to?
yeah, and exactly. And then they also told her at the same time that her young son, when he turned 18, would have a horrible accident and pass away. And so she kept that inside. Of course, she never said anything to her son about it. And soon after he turned 18, he got into a car accident and died. So,
And let's just put a disclaimer here. I'm a reader as well. We don't only always see death, right? We see great deal of opportunity in life, not
right,
always death, but death
right.
does show its face. Yeah.
Yeah. So, those kind of things just are remarkable. I was flying back from a conference, and I ended up sitting next to a woman who was a doctor, and we started talking, and she started telling me the story about uh, this woman who had cancer, and she was supposed to be operated on the following morning, and the doctors came in to get her into the surgery, and woman said, I don't need any surgery. I'm okay. I'm cured. And they said, well, what do you mean? He says, well, she said, they came last night and took care of it.
Hmm.
So anyway, they figured she was losing it,
Yeah.
going a little crazy. And anyway, they wheeled her in and they decided, okay, we better look anyway before we do any cutting. And sure enough, it was gone. It was gone.
I hear
And
many, many cases of that. I've been doing this 10 years. I've got about 3,000 shows, and there's many, 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 many a story like this that I've heard, and also of people who are the healers, who can do
yeah,
that. And it has to be a two-way street. You have somebody or the entities that have the healing, but the person has to be um, reciprocal of it. They have to open up and surrender so the
hmm
healing can happen. And if there's any doubt or distrust, they cannot come in. And this is sometimes, I talk about the knowingness, and the knowingness is when the soul's wisdom, the universal wisdom, speaks through our heart in truth, ignites our spirit into action, and our minds will know what it needs to know when it needs to know it. And if we just step into that knowingness of the now without all the other human chatter of distrust and can I believe it, or, da 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 da, I just shut that out, we would know what we need to know when we need to know it, and we would trust what we need to know. And that is when you can be in that state of being, that's when they can really help you because you haven't got the resistance in the way.
yeah. I two other examples. This woman and her husband were abducted. Okay, and when they came back, the wife was able to heal people, which
Hmm.
she never had that kind of
Right.
capability.
Yeah.
And then the other case was actually, I'm just blanking on it right now. It'll come back.
Hmm.
But yeah, you hear things like that. Oh, I know. The case was a man who had cancer, and this orb entered his body, and afterwards, again, the cancer was gone.
Yeah. It
Now,
absorbed
there's
it. Mhm.
two kinds of situations. There's a book out now by Home Keller and George Knapp, who's a big personality of TV and radio, and it's called Skinwalkers at the Pentagon. And they talk about orbs going into people's bodies, but then creating issues,
Mm.
creating health issues. So it's like you got good orbs and you got bad orbs, I guess, which is another. There's so many things that are involved with this realm, uh, and that you scratch your head. That's why I don't have a whole lot of hair.
Yeah, that could be a good point. Well, I'm so gray. Yeah. The thing is, it's each lifetime we're here to understand, what we're here to do. And I came here with a job to help humans connect with that beautiful divine channeling of the universe, the universal wisdom, so that it would always guide them forward in truth in their existence. And somewhere along the line that got disconnected and religion stepped in, and religion became
hmm
about control and power, not
Right.
about you know godly or Tao, whatever you want to call it,
hmm
energy. And it
hmm
became something that was, let's keep them in fear because then we can control them. And we
Right.
stepped into
Right.
the fear spectrum where so many people don't even know what they're afraid of. And this part of that is that DNA doctrine through their ancestors, through past lives, where the fear has been a state of mind and heart that they've lived in all their lives, and they don't know how to get rid of that fear. And sometimes it's look at the fear. Do you have anything to be afraid of in your own life? Really? I mean, yes, you're afraid of the government, you're afraid of this idiot or that idiot, pushing a button and all of that. I mean, you watch the news and it's a lot to be afraid of because there's so many idiots out there. But, what do you personally have to be afraid of? And if you can't name it, in a rational way, then it doesn't belong to you. And if you can't remove it from yourself, There are so many people out there that can help remove that fear, remove those past memories, so that you can then step of choosing into your own love light and then step into the journey that you were here to do. But we've got to realize those blockages that are in our way, those doubts or those fears or those disbeliefs, are an accumulation of lifetimes and also of human control. And when we decide to surrender to that and say, I'm no longer going to be controlled and I want to release myself from these memories, there are so many people that are very, very good at releasing those memories for you so that you can be that beautiful blank slate and start all over again. I
Mm,
had 152 lifetimes removed from me in 94, and that opened me up considerably. And then since then discovered another 50 lifetimes that were deep, deep in the cellular that had to be removed. And it's you feel so very different afterwards because you're not carrying a heavy weight that you didn't know what the heavy weight was,
hmm
right? It just
right.
heavy weight, and now you don't have that heavy weight anymore, and you can open up to the messaging, to the wisdom of what you're really here to do.
Yeah, I think that you talked about fear in the beginning, and that most people are a product of their upbringing,
Yes,
and what they, you know, I was raised as a Roman Catholic, and
and that's very fear-based.
absolutely, and then some of the dogma, like a baby that comes into this world has original sin,
Hmm.
and I'm going, no, I don't buy that. So consequently, I don't practice anymore.
Hmm.
I believe that I'm a spiritual person, and I believe that there's some, call it source, call it God, whatever you want to call it,
Well,
that
God, universe, spirit, right?
right,
Energy source,
exactly,
yeah.
yeah. And so, but yeah, some what we found working with these people that come to us is the fact that there was childhood trauma
Yeah.
that caused them to dissociate to a certain degree,
Hmm.
which opened them up
Hmm.
uh, to accepting or having these things come into them, and which to me, starting off in basically a negative situation, turning into eventually a positive situation, because these things when they first happen are quite traumatizing, and because people, when you get up in the middle of the night and you see these objects or these entities standing at the foot of your bed, uh, that's pretty scary. But then they find out that eventually uh, that these they become accustomed to what is going on, and we did a study here recently that 75 to 80% of the people that have had experiences want them to continue, and only
Yes.
20 to
Yeah.
25% that say no, I don't want it to happen anymore. Please help me stop it. Uh, so yeah, it's not an easy path that once you get on it, but you will come out the other side
Oh,
in
yeah.
probably pretty good shape.
But just things make so much more sense. I mean, I was a very sickly child, so
Mhm.
consequently in bed like for weeks on end. And back in my day, there was no, computer, tablet, TV, or not even radio in my room. So, I be there on my own, and that's I think when I started dimensional traveling. And but I also played with dead people, and I couldn't understand why my mom couldn't see this person in the room. Now, my mum was Faye, but she didn't see that what she did do, as I did for many, many years of my life, and we could never choose it. We were chosen because we just happened to be on the same frequency. Is that when people crossed over and they didn't know where the light was, and we would be
Mm,
that person to show them the light.
yeah,
And
right.
we both
Mm,
have done that through our lives. I asked a few years ago for that to stop so that I could open up to to other things that I needed to do, which has happened. But I played with dead people and I couldn't understand why the people couldn't do that. I have wonderful memories of certain places that aren't on this planet. I think because I did it as a child, my biggest problem was um, that really, quite honest, humans considered me the freak. Now, if they wanted to know their futures, or if they wanted to know what was happening around them, or they wanted to have some wisdom at the time, because I channeled it, it didn't come from me, it didn't come from Sarah, it came through the channel, then it was fine. And then after that, didn't want to associate with me because I was the weird one. So I had to live with that. But quite
Yeah.
honestly, I am quite happy that I'm weird, you know, because of what it has shown me. I saw my first UFO when I was 12, when my mum and
Hmm.
I were driving early in the morning. We stopped and we watched it in the sky as it zigzagged and went all around. And we've seen a few others since then. Um,
Sure.
for us to think that we are the only life forms in the universe is arrogant and ignorant. To think that we are the most superior in the universe is scary because look at us. We have so much potential that we have not met yet. We're still hating one another. We're still fighting with one another. We still fight over the color of the skin, the religion, the economic stature. You know, it is until we stop fighting with one another, we're not going to ascend to a higher vibration. But I think we come here to learn. And I think maybe we're in grade 3 now. We've got a long way to go.
Yeah, the process is fascinating to me. You know that you have that initial uh, uh, trauma that
Yes.
occurs in a lot of cases, and then you go through this, and then at the end, sometimes when it stops, when you all of a sudden all this stops, it's like the Stockholm syndrome. How
Mm.
come? How come this is not happening to me anymore? You know. Well, maybe it's because whatever you were supposed to learn, you learned, and
And you
or
switch
your
channels to
job is
go in
done.
another direction, right?
Yeah, yeah,
You know, just because something comes to an end, that means that chapter has come to an end.
yeah,
You know, stop mourning
exactly.
the chapter, open up the book for a new chapter.
Yeah, yeah, exactly, exactly. No, it's
Um,
interesting. That's for sure.
you know, I said that my brother was an author and he writes a great deal over kind of supernaturalist, very much dimensional, you know, other
Hmm.
dimensions, other words, worlds, and people going in and out of other worlds. And it's always so incredibly realistic. And it kind of makes it, I want to be there. I want to go to that world. But in his real life, he's kind of very, we call him the moo cow because it's no. and it and he's very very solo, very, very much of a loner, which I think we all are in
Hmm.
our family. But you know, his artistry and his opening up to these other things comes out in his writing. And I think one of the things we need to understand is that whatever gift we're given, his was the art of writing. Um, I am that concierge to help people who are wanting to ascend, to show them where to go and who can help them. That's the reason why I do what I do. You are helping people who have had these experiences and they're not quite sure what they are and they need to understand them. So you're providing that support to say, no, you haven't gone mad. This is just a wonderful experience. And I think if we can accept what our role is in this lifetime and go with it instead of fighting against it, it would be a lot more exciting and a lot easier.
Yeah, I totally agree with that, and it's difficult to go with it sometimes because it is traumatizing to a certain degree, and
What do
and
you find traumatizing about it?
well, I think the initial phase, that first contact,
Mm-hmm.
like you saw your first dead person. I imagine that was something that was made you have second thoughts about,
No,
am I
because I was
going
such a
crazy?
young child. I was about
Yeah,
3 in
yeah,
the memory. So
yeah,
for me, it
yeah,
was just completely natural. I've been
yeah.
body
It's like,
snatched. That was
yeah,
traumatizing. But
right,
but the
yeah,
first experience, I was too young to be traumatized by it.
Right, right. Yeah, that's true. It depends on when it's
Hmm.
occurring, and a lot of these cases, people feel that they're going crazy,
Hmm.
and then they go to a psychiatrist or psychologist, and they find out that they're not, and then then what do
Unless
you
the
do?
psychiatrist isn't a believer, and then they'll classify them as crazy.
Oh, exactly,
Hmm.
exactly, and then start
So know
prescribing
who you're
drugs.
going to, right?
Yeah, stop, issuing drugs
Yes.
to them to I mean, we have people in the group that are taking drugs because their psychologist, or excuse me, their psychiatrist, uh, you know, had them on drugs. Uh, but is really interesting is the fact that they understand that, and they're talking to the group about their experiences, and people that aren't on any
Yeah.
kind of drug
Are going
are
for the same thing.
going through the same
Yeah.
thing, and that's the really interesting part, that it is so common,
Hmm.
and here in the United States, I assume you're in the UK. Where are you located?
I'm actually British, but I'm in Canada.
Oh, you're in Canada.
Yeah.
Okay. Um, that the oh no, I just lost my train of thought.
It's okay. It'll come
Where was
back in
I
a second.
going? I shouldn't have asked you where you are.
It'll come back. It will come back. Um,
uh,
the thing
well,
is that there are certain societies that are far more open to this than others, certain
mhm,
cultures that are more open to this than others, because it's something that was taught in their culture. It was a
right.
practice that they've always practiced. And until kind of religion came in and started dictating the way you were meant to be, and that God ruled
Mhm,
over you and you had no power, um, people were more instinctual. You look at the simple shepherd, or the farmer. They had to know the weather. They had to know how to read the stars. They had to know how to listen to the animals,
mhm.
to know what was happening. Because when they were in tuned, they were in that frequency, and they didn't have all this other sophistication that now is kind of in a way dumbed us down because we're not stepping into our intuitive selves because we're rather
Oh, we're
saturated.
not, yeah, we've lost our spirituality is
Yeah.
what it is.
Hmm.
The and if we had more of it, we'd be in a much better place. Getting back to love
Yeah.
and thinking in those terms. Yeah, it's I get upset, with what's going on here in the United States. The government, now is planning on actually really investigating what they call UAPs, unidentified aerial phenomena, instead of UFOs. I guess it's a more accepted
Right. It sounds
terminology.
more scientific.
Yeah. Well, you know, that's wonderful, but at the same time, you have thousands. There was a Roper organization back in '92 that did a survey, and out of that survey, they figured there'd be like 6 million people in the United States alone that have had some kind of experience like that. And just moving forward in time, how many more people have had experiences?
Hmm.
And you know, it's just something that we are living with, and hopefully trying to better understand. And the other part of the UAP situation are the people that are having these experiences.
Hmm.
What about those people? Well, these people are in contact with these, if they're extraterrestrial in nature, which some of them seem to be, either reptilian or praying mantis type or Nordic type or grays,
Hmm.
things of that nature. Um, they are just kind of are able to communicate with these entities telepathically, and I think that if the government would want to find out more about these people or these entities, then they just need to talk to these people. And I
Right,
think
exactly.
what's happening is that it is happening. The government is involved, and they are working with various experiencers. And I know our CIA has been involved. and NSA, various government agencies. Matter of fact, I do I think maybe you've seen it on the website. I do an interview series myself where I
Hmm.
interview people, and one of the people that I'm going to have on is Ryan Bledsoe, who is the son of Chris Bledsoe, who had some phenomenal interaction with these light beings. And so, you know,
Well, these shows are the things that are going to make the government step up and pay attention. Because the beauty of podcasting, we haven't got some director going, cut, cut, no, you can't say that, or that's got to be
right,
bleeped out. It's
right,
open and honest.
yep,
You can choose to believe it or not. That is your own free will. But the more we
hmm,
talk about it and the more people that talk about it and talk about the various experiences, the more it actually connects and resonates with people and going, well, maybe that's what that experience was that I had. Or,
yeah,
maybe that's that feeling that I had and I didn't understand what it was. And the more that they are paying attention, believe me, more the government will pay the attention. So don't be surprised if they don't have an entire area that is listening to podcasts that that are
I'm
going,
sure they
okay,
are.
what's being said here? Do we need to
Yeah,
know?
yeah. No, I mean that is so true that the general population, they get up in the morning, have breakfast, go to work, come home at night, have dinner, watch a little TV, and go to bed, and this process continues every day.
Sheeple. Meh.
Yeah, exactly. And it's people like yourself and myself that have been able to kind of step out of that
Mhm.
rat race, if you will, and start to focus on what I think is more important. And the work that you do is very important, and being able to help people the way you help people, and doing your podcast, getting the word out is
Well,
so
bringing
important.
people on like yourself who are talking about that, do not be afraid. There is support if the experience has kind of traumatized you or shaken you up. I prefer to use the word shaken up because traumatized is
Right.
going, I think, a little big. Um, we've actually, as a human nation, stepped up. A lot of things are there to shake us up out of our complacency or out of our fog, but we've stepped into traumatizing it rather than being shaken by it because we've
Mhm.
been traumatized by so much else. That's the first thing we seem to step into. And I think that's something that we as a human race need to look at and go, okay, all right, this is a bit weird. Yeah, I'm a bit shaken by it, but I don't need to go into the trauma of it. Instead, I should go into the venture of it, of what does it mean? Let's be
Mhm.
inquisitive.
Mm. Yeah, I totally agree with that. I mean, and a lot of people do approach it that way. We get questions all the time. So, what do you think about this? Or what does this mean? They're very curious, and then you have other people that they have an extremely hard time. And again, they're based on their background,
Right.
what's gone on in their lives, whether or not they can handle the situation, at least in the initial stages of it. Yeah, it's
Well, I traumatized a few people in my life, and one of the times I was sharing a house with two guys and another girl. This was in South Africa,
mhm,
and it was very hard to get a phone at that time, but we had a phone. It was in the hallway. It was in the middle of the night, and the phone went. And normally somebody would just let somebody else get it, but we all came out to get it. And I
mhm,
picked up the phone, and apparently I went ashen, completely white. Somebody took the phone from me, and they said it was just a really eerie sound on the other end, and she slammed it down.
hmm,
And then a few hours later, or maybe the next day, I'm not just so long ago, quite remember, probably the next day. Um, I that was the third thing, is trying to remember the sequence of it. I started screaming in my room and sounding weird, and weird things were coming out of me, and they all came rushing in, and my body was riling on the bed, and I was
hmm.
trying to scratch my skin off. And these
Wow.
two these two footballers didn't believe in anything other than beer and football, right? And everything else was Coswallop. They're holding me down, and apparently I'm saying I'm her father, and these guys were shouting, "You're no father of her. No father would do this," and they're trying to hold me down. while this entity left my body. And then it was a day or two later, I ended up losing half of my body's blood and having to
Oh,
have a
whoa.
transfusion. I
Wow.
was at the time dabbling way too much into the outer world, or inner world, whichever way. I was diving into it without protection. And
Mm,
you just need to sometimes white light yourself. Just ask yourself for white
yeah.
light and protection. And um, I was young and I was diving into and I opened up a world to the dark arts. And this
Hmm.
is what happened. It doesn't happen to everybody, folks, so you don't need to worry. I was doing things without that safety. But if you are going to investigate or go into trances or going to do things, do protect yourself. And there's various ways and means that you can do that. But believe me, those footballers and the other girl who were non-believers afterwards, they were traumatized. They were
Yeah.
believers.
There you go. I knew that term would come into play.
Well, yeah, when you're seeing somebody's body going like this on the bed.
Yeah. Yeah. You were possessed. You
I
were
was
possessed.
possessed, yes,
Oh my
completely.
goodness. Wow.
And
Well,
and the possession of people that have died and they don't realize they're dead, or they don't want to be dead and they want to step into another body. Right. And
hmm.
also don't forget, I was also at that time helping people crossing over into the light when they died. So my
Oh,
channel was open there, and I just happened to get one of those ones that, hey, I don't want to go into the light. I want your body. So,
yeah. Wow. Yeah. No, that must have been one scary thing for you.
yes. I think they needed more than beer after that.
I bet. I bet. Yeah. Pull up, get the
But
beer out.
yes, but that
Oh,
obviously had to happen for a reason. A, to
mhm,
shake me up and like be more protective, but also
mhm,
maybe for them to shake them up that there is more to life than beer and football, and there
right.
are other stranger things in the world, and be open to it. And nothing
Right.
happens to us without it being a door opener to something else. We've just got to be willing to open up that door and try and understand what else is trying to show us.
Absolutely. And it's people like yourself that are important connection for people because you've had the experiences. Uh, how to approach this properly and do the things that need to be done. Um, so I'm always you know so in awe of people like yourself that are able to connect that way, not only with the other side, on the other side of the veil, if you will,
Mhm.
uh, or to people here on this plane.
Well,
So
there are
it's
so many people. I mean, this is why self-discovery is all about. It's about our self-discovery, but it's also about the people like yourself. Things have happened to them, the cosmic two by four very often, and it's to realize that cosmic two by four is to say, are you listening to me yet? This is the path you're meant to take. And
right.
some people's cosmic two by fours have really not only traumatized them, but flattened them. But they chose to rise up and go through the process of healing and understanding to become the wonderful healers and leaders they are today because they've gone through that experience. So I represent those people with these shows like yourself, being there for support with people who don't understand what they're seeing or what they're feeling or what's going on. And then when people feel they're not alone and the other people are going through it too, and you can honestly talk about it without feeling ridiculed or persecuted, it is a safe place for people to expand their knowledge with.
Yeah, I couldn't have said that any better. You really. I mean, people are looking for number one, confirmation of sorts that they aren't crazy,
Right.
and that they need an empathetic ear to listen to their stories and not be judgmental. And that's what we try to do with our website. That
Yes.
we're a neutral place. We appreciate everybody's opinion, um, and the support group. We watch that very carefully to make sure that there's not somebody getting on their soapbox and saying this is the only way it can possibly be. You
Right.
know.
Well, and that's the thing is, again, you have this experience, I have that experience, that person has that experience. They're all valid
Mm,
experiences. They're
exactly.
all part of the smoker's board, the buffet, right?
Hmm.
And it doesn't mean you eat everything at the buffet. You're going to partake for something, that taste requires. We're all given that beautiful instrument. You can be part of the orchestra,
Hmm.
but it doesn't mean we have to be the same instrument in the orchestra.
Yeah. I'm I'm just going to change the subject here for a minute and just tell you a little personal thing. Um, my wife of 52 years just passed away on
I'm so sorry.
July 17th,
Wow.
and the way it happened was so sudden that it just left me dumbfounded
Yeah.
and wondering why did that happen the way it happened, and what does that mean to me?
Hmm.
So on a very personal level, and then I've talked to a conscious channeler and a psychic since then, and they said, well, basically she set that up that way
Yes, she did.
for me, and that she was with me and she is with
Yeah.
me, and but I
She
mean,
knew you
when,
couldn't take the drawn out,
yeah,
right? She knew you, and she didn't want to see that. She didn't
yeah,
want to know. She didn't want you to know she was dying. She didn't want that kind of death because she knew how it affected you. This was, yes, harsh, but at the same time easier than what it would have been alternatively. And yes, she's still very much with you.
wow, thank you.
And she would communicate with you. You've just got to find your channel of how she speaks to you. So be
Hmm.
open to whatever's happening, some weird things in the house, or dreams
Yeah,
you have, or things that you feel tapping on the shoulder, which you think she
right.
likes to tap you on the shoulder.
Uh-huh.
She'll keep you in line.
Yeah, she did a very good job all the years we've been married, that's for sure.
And when you feel that the hand on the shoulder, that is a feel for her like a, now remember what this is
Hmm.
for, or remember what you're here for. I think
Hmm.
that the hand on the shoulder is to kind of keep you back on track.
Yeah. Well, good. Thank you for that.
My
Thank you
pleasure.
very much. But I mean, again, this is a part of life that, we all have to go through at some point, with a loved one or
Mhm.
yourself. And I think that there's a lot of fear involved for so many people when it comes to that point where, okay, you find out you're going to be dying or you're going to be dead. And so that's another aspect of all of this too, is on a very personal, individual basis, that these kind of things are, you need to deal with it. And but I've certainly, throughout all of the years that I've been in this field, that I am not worried about dying,
Right.
and I'm actually, looking forward to that day that, maybe I can, see my wife again somewhere, who
Well,
knows?
you will, but the essence of her is very much in you and around you. She is going to be
Mhm.
with you until you do reunite. It was just the end of her contract, if you know what I mean, right?
Mhm.
It was her time to go, but she knows you
Yeah,
still got work to do, and
yeah,
she wants to help you from behind the scenes.
great, great. See, this turned out to be one hell of a session.
A lot
Oh
of
my
people are
goodness.
afraid of death, I mean, nobody
Yeah,
wants to die painfully,
yeah,
and people are afraid of death. Death
mm,
is just a transition.
yeah.
Your soul and your heart will
Hmm.
go on with you. Your spirit will go on with you. We borrow these vessels to have this human experience, but the I always say to people, please take care of your shoot in this lifetime so you don't pass it on to another lifetime.
Mm,
Make sure you leave here um, kind of clean and whole so that you can bring that wholesomeness to the next life. Because that's really what it's about. Don't bring the trauma of life over with you into the next
right,
life. And she
right,
didn't have any
right.
of that. She had no regrets.
Hmm. No, she very stoic lady, and good sense of humor on top of everything.
Mhm.
And yeah, she's certainly. because it happened so quick, I keep expecting her to walk through the door any minute. And
Yeah.
maybe she is.
Yeah, well, I think that is actually part of her essence there is that you will in your mind's eye or in your heart's eye see her at the door. You will
Uh-huh.
feel and see her there. She is going to make her presence known. And however it manifests, just, don't get shocked by it. Just totally embrace the moment.
Mhm.
Part of it, the human part of you is grieving. 52 years is a long time, hun.
Yeah.
All the memories and everything you've done together, but then you've got the spiritual belief that she's just gone on ahead of you and she's still with you. So hold on to that, but allow the human to grieve.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you for that. Thank you very much.
My pleasure. That goes for anybody else out there that's going through this right now, right?
Oh my goodness.
So how do people get hold of Opus or join,
Yeah.
if they want to kind of speak
Yeah.
to something that
Sure.
I want to know more about it, how do they do it?
Basically, what they would want to do is to go to our website, which is opusnetwork.org. And there's a support button on the very first page. And there you can tell us what you're looking for. We give them a number of choices, whether or not they would like to be put into this online support group, whether or not they would like a referral to a mental health practitioner or a hypnotherapist, or anything with regard to talking with a member of our EST, the experiencer support team, which a number of people that have the kind of background that could actually talk to these people one on one and give them the kind of information that they might need, or if they can't give them any information of a particular nature that they're looking for, then we might be able to refer them to other groups, because
Hmm.
we paranormal covers a lot of areas.
Yes.
And as it turned out, for whatever reason, most of the people that come to us are involved with contact with non-human intelligences, and UFO type of
Hmm.
scenarios. But we're open to all of it.
Right.
And, we'd like to help people as much as possible.
And tell us about your book and how people can get hold of
Oh,
it.
yeah. My book is called The Unknown Other and the Existential Proposition of Alien Contact, which is kind of a nuts and bolts kind of a overview of the phenomena. I talk about implantations. I talk about hybridization. I talk about uh, the government, looking into the phenomena. I talk about various type of electromagnetic effects and microwave effects that people have exhibited. So it goes into the history of Opus, how we got started, and what we do, so it's a real overview. And the bottom line on all of this is the fact that we really need to try to better understand what's going on,
Right.
because it could be, there's a couple of schools of thought on the whole thing where, they're they're the good guys, and then we have some bad guys, and hopefully the good guys are more than the bad guys in this whole thing. But we need to be aware. We need to be understanding, and so that's the main purpose of the book, is to just the public that really doesn't um, you know tune into this,
Yeah.
to hopefully have them take a look at a book like this and get a better awareness of all the aspects of it.
Yeah.
And part of that is proof in there,
Right.
like with implants. These
Hmm.
are very strange objects that people have and have been analyzed. So
The thing is, it's there. It's not going away. It's going to escalate. So we can't escape it. That's just the way it is.
mhm,
The other thing is our own vibration would dictate what good or bad comes to us. So
mhm,
if we're on a good wavelength, a good vibration, at a higher frequency, then the bad frequencies actually can't get us. So, again, it's what we feed, it's what will grow. But if we're
Hmm.
open to actually understanding what's going on and realize it is going on, we can't deny this. And it's not to be afraid of, but it is to be understood. And the
Hmm.
more we understand it, the more we understand our part in it, and the more they're going to show us. Because believe me, they're turning the volume up on us. And they're turning the volume up of awareness, and they will actually physically reveal themselves in the future, because it's time for us to know, A, we're not alone, and B, we're screwing up. And if we don't put ourselves up on the right path, we will destroy this planet, which will have a shattering effect in our universe. So it is the Haglas, the disruption right now, and out of that disruption will come the clarity. And it's through people like yourself, with the book, with your opus, and with the podcast that you're doing, that are one show at a time, one book at a time, one talk at a
Yeah,
time, opening up
all
that
right.
door, and that's what
Exactly.
happens. So,
And the book is on Amazon,
mhm.
and there's a picture of the book on our homepage, and you just click on that, it'll take you there.
Yep, it's on your
Uh,
show page. It's right here.
yep,
So all
yep,
people have to do is just put in on
yep.
selfdiscoverymedia.com. If they're listening to this down the road, all they have to put in is your name, Lester Velez, and Velez, and your whole show page will come up, which is with the book and Opus Network as well, which is
Fantastic.
opusnetwork.org,
Or,
O-R-G,
or.
folks, right? So
Right.
thank you for coming and
Thank you.
sharing today. And, do know that your wife is very much with you. She was very practical, wasn't she?
Yes.
Very down to
Very,
earth.
very
Yeah.
practical.
So she says, when you feel a hand on the shoulder, she's reminding you to look at things rationally. And her essence and her presence is still going to be very much around you. She was quite a force in her own life, and she will continue to be that force in her afterlife.
Thank you, Sarah. I appreciate that.
My
Thank you.
pleasure, darling, my pleasure. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing at this time, and keep up with the wonderful work, because it is essential right now. We have to open up those doors to understand we're not alone. We don't need to be afraid. Yes, there's always things to be cautious about, right? But it is up to us to raise that frequency, and we do that by opening up our minds to knowledge, talking about it, not being afraid to talk about it, and understanding there's so much more out there for us to learn if we're willing to learn it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you so much, Sarah, for having me on your podcast. It's been a pleasure.
My pleasure, my pleasure. So until next time, folks, remember there's a lot going on out there that maybe you don't see, but open your eyes, open your heart, and open your soul, and it will be revealed, and it's there for you. Until next time, bye for now. We hope that you enjoyed the show. Find all of our shows on selfdiscoverymedia.com under podcasts or selfdiscoverymedia/shows. And for all our current shows, go to What's New. We are supported by you, the audience. You'll see a nice big shiny blue button for one-time donations, or follow us on Patreon and you will be able to support us there. We enjoy bringing you such wisdom. And the next show will be up in just a moment.